Bam! What's up, guys? We're going to be talking about Mulgara by David Rose. It's a novella. It was published in 2019, last year. It's a dark fantasy novella. It's because it definitely has horror elements, fantasy elements, and there's even a little bit of humor. So what we have here is basically a twisted tale. A notorious necromancer by the name of Macidian has just passed away. And so basically we start off at the reading of the will. And basically family members of Macidian are sitting and just grinding their teeth because they're watching people that they don't feel worthy or that are not connected to the family inheriting all the heirlooms. One person that can't stand this at all is the nephew of Macidian, Irian. And now Irian has basically said, nah, fuck that, I'm getting mine. So he's basically set out to right what he considers egregious wrongs done to him by his late uncle. And what plays out from here is dark, dastardly, skin crawling. Yeah, it's a messed up journey from here on out. All right, so now that we scratched that surface, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the first thing I noticed, the writing style. David Rose is a very descriptive writer. Very, very descriptive. Probably more so than my tastes. But I have to admit, there was something here in this novella that struck me early in and it made me want to continue and challenge myself with, I always try to push forward. I don't want to get hung up and only read straightforward styles of writing. So this was a good little challenge. And it was very beautifully written. Very beautifully written. So the next thing I want to get into is probably going to be all over the place. Let's kind of touch on characters and stuff. So the book is written in first person, and it's kind of switches off between characters. So it's told between three different people: a necromancer, a grave robber, and a thief. The first part of this book, the necromancer's part, I loved. I loved it. It was so good. Like, that's really what kept me going, because like I said, David Rose's writing is a little bit more flowery than I'd like to digest, but what was going on in the story had me hooked. It's got jealousy, it's got betrayal, it's got revenge, it's got bloodshed, it's just got everything you want in some dark fantasy. Then moving on to the second part with the grave robber's story, it definitely slows down some. Now, this is definitely going to be a preference thing, and definitely it's more subjective. This is all like my personal preference, so I do believe that there's going to be a lot of people that really love this story. I just had a lot of stuff to nitpick out of it, So one being, when we got to the middle of the story, it was just a slower pace. And to me, it wasn't as interesting as the beginning. So here I am throughout the middle, just kind of craving more of what I got in the start. Now, I don't think everyone's going to have this same opinion that I do because of the book being written as beautifully as it is. The third part is where we switch over to the burglar, the thief. This is also where the pace begins to pick up. Some of the loose ends begin to tie together. It all kind of ties together in the end. It definitely starts to become more interesting. At least that was my opinion. So you're probably going to keep hearing me saying that, oh, it's beautifully written. It's beautifully written. Well, I guess that's the most glaring pro out of this book for me. So, I do want to go take this time and let's just get into some of my beefs with the book. Yeah, so like I said, first thing for me personally, reading this book was already going to be a little bit of a task just because the writing style was not as digestible for somebody like me. That being said, the beginning was so awesome that, okay, I'm bought and I'm sold, man. Like, you got me. But then when we move into the middle, like that change of pace, I didn't even know that we were going to be changing like character views. So it was a bit jarring. And then the pace slowing down, and just for me, I mean, it was made so interesting and so crazy in the beginning that it seemed like it cooled off a lot, and it was just hard to get back into it. Also, just personally for me, the ending, I mean, everything ties together, and it's, you know, it's got this like moment, but to me, I feel like it just lost so much steam from the beginning that the end is not this whoa moment. Another issue I guess I have with it, and this is a weird one, and it's gonna, you know, some people might agree with me, and probably a lot will disagree. But there's just interesting choices that David Rose made in here. It's a novella. It's a small book, right? So we got like 150 pages to get this thing on and cracking. And what David Rose does is he spent, you know, for one, when you have 150 pages, so yeah, not a lot of time, right? So number one, he's a very descriptive writer. So automatically, a good chunk of these pages is just description. Next off, he does quite a bit of world building and like creating a rich history. Now, I am not against world building or creating this history. This is part of how you enjoy the world. But in a 150-page novella that it's not a series, it's just a one and done. Like, I feel it's a strange decision to stop and build up so much of this world and not put in the time into maybe the characters. Not that the characters aren't well done, but I just felt like we kept going on this scenic trip. You know what I mean? It was like, can't we get back to the story at hand? So yeah, I mean, and this is something that kind of bugs me with a lot of novellas. I just kind of question their choices, given the amount of pages and the amount of time we have to deal with the story. It seems like you're doing a lot of dilly-dallying. So ultimately, though, I've got to recommend this book to anybody that likes dark fantasy, because I feel like it's a quick read. It's very beautifully written. There it goes again, the millionth time I'm going to say it. It just is. It really does read a lot like poetry. David Rose actually is, from what I understand, an award-winning poet. So all that kind of makes sense. As far as the slow and the struggling go, slow readers, you shouldn't have a problem. Like speed, you know, this is a novella. It's 150 pages. You know, being a slow reader, this is not going to impact you at all. You can, by all means, get into this story and devour it and be on to the next. For struggling readers, it just really depends on what your struggle is, because if your struggle might not be, you know, like overly over descriptive, you know, tales, you know, like that might not be your struggle. You might actually prefer to have a very descriptive read. So I just feel, though, this book is a little, like, as far as the pacing is all over the place. And if you have a hard time with descriptive reads, this one's gonna hang you up. So yeah. That all being said, like, this kind of reminds me of my Cabal review, and I just wanted to go out there. It's like, look, I'm not beating this book up. I'm really like, I would like to see people read this book and actually get back to me, because I would love to talk about this one probably more than a lot of others, just because I know it's a good book. I just have my personal issues with it. So anyway. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this one wasn't too much of a nightmare. I really appreciate your guys' time. Thank you. Bam! What's up, guys? We're going to be talking about Mulgara by David Rose. It's a novella. It was published in 2019, last year. It's a dark fantasy novella. It's because it definitely has horror elements, fantasy elements, and there's even a little bit of humor.